Up next on Art Rocks, we're off to a West Feliciana parish school to learn how the legacy of Louisiana legend George Rodrigue is living on. Rodrigue's son Jacques is with us to explain how the Louisiana A+ programs are putting the art back into STEM curriculum at schools statewide. We'll show you how a Florida sculptor is paying homage to her love of horses.
I want to know where it's going. I want to know where it's going to be. And they're that important to me that they're just not commodity that I'm selling.
An artist, Nathan Meltz, combines printed technological symbols with animated art.
All those different ways that technology intersects with every part of our existence, from family and food to politics and war.
That's all up next on Art Rocks.
Art Rocks is made possible by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you.
Hello, I'm James Fox Smith, publisher of Country Roads magazine, and thanks for joining us for Art Rocks. Today we zero in on one of the legacies of acclaimed Louisiana artist George Rodrigue, who we lost to cancer in 2013. During his life, Rodrigue was a deep believer in the importance of arts education, and 3 years after his death, the George Rodrigue Foundation for the Arts is carrying that legacy into schools statewide via the Louisiana A+ program. That's something which teaches teachers how to integrate the arts into core STEM curriculum. Let's see how that happens. This is how every student and teacher at Baines Lower Elementary School in St. Francisville starts every week, by filling the halls with dancing and singing as part of a routine that they call Motivational Monday. And just like magic, when the music ends, these pre-kindergartners through first graders quietly and orderly enter their respective classrooms, where their engagement with the arts continues.
We're going to work on high-frequency words with song. We're working on
high-frequency words with song.
Our kids are able to access the core subjects through implementation of art, whether it's through song, through dance, through chant. Our kids are excited, they're motivated about learning.
With the new art vocabulary and learning about different things like sculpture, tableau, pantomime, things the words that they normally wouldn't hear in a kindergarten classroom, it has kept them very interested in the learning process. And I think incorporating that across the curriculum has helped us in English language arts, math, science, social studies. It's really helped throughout the curriculum.
We know that our Christmas tree is going to be in a geometric shape called a what? Triangle. Very good. Say it again. Triangle.
The A+ in the name refers to arts plus education, and to the goal of helping each child improve their educational outcomes, not only in art, but also throughout the STEM curriculum. Administered statewide by the George Rodrigue Foundation, the A+ initiative is currently in place in 18 schools throughout Louisiana, with more to come.
In 4 years, we've seen test scores go up at our schools, discipline problems go down, and attendance go up. And we recently did a survey of about all of our students and teachers, and the answers they gave were in the 90–95% positive on this impact.
students learn in different ways, and the arts are really what level that playing field in the classroom. Some students learn through hearing, some students learn through movement, through visual, and the arts bring those different types of learning to the classroom. And that's when we really see our students flourish, when they're learning the way that they want to be taught.
Schools wanting to join the A+ program must first meet certain criteria.
Our teachers had to vote on this program. That's a requirement from the George Rodrigue Foundation, which is powerful. They were introduced to the program, and so they bought in, and they overwhelmingly voted to put this program in place. It's job-embedded training, which means the trainers come from all over in different states, and they travel here to Baines Lower, and they come and do the training on campus, and then they follow up with support.
I've had 3 children come through Baines Lower, but my youngest is the only one that's had the opportunity to engage in the arts integration program. She's able to retain the knowledge, whether it be from a jingle or a dance or some type of song they learn to help with the math or the reading lesson. And she uses that to engage in her homework by herself, independently. She's more creative.
I have a little boy in pre-K. He's working really hard at developing his letters, and I'm hearing a lot about the different types of lines, diagonals, zigzags, wavy lines, and it's fun to watch him do that in his handwriting and then walk throughout the school and see that same concept being taught in the art class.
When students are actively engaged, meaning they're doing the work, they're excited about coming to school, excited about learning, they're going to be more involved, and their academic achievement's going to go up.
Joining us now to share about the A+ program is Rodrigue's son Jacques, who has run the Rodrigue Foundation since his father's death in 2013. Jacques, thanks for joining us and for spearheading this program. Your father obviously was a deep believer in the importance of arts education, but now really it was kind of his blue dog that got the ball rolling in the first place. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. You know, for years, students and teachers across the country were sending in blue dogs that they would paint in their classrooms. Mm-hmm. And after the tragedies of 9/11 and Hurricane Katrina, Dad did a series of blue dog relief prints to raise money for those causes. Mm-hmm. And eventually we wanted to do something more proactive to really give back in a meaningful, long-term way. And so arts and education was a natural fit because of how much students were already embracing the blue dog.
Of course. Now, West Feliciana's program is just getting going, but A+ as a system has been around for much longer, hasn't it? Tell us what you hear from older students in systems where the program has been in place about the ways in which arts education is really accelerating and enhancing their appreciation of STEM.
Right. So A+ has been around 20 years. And the results have been fantastic to see how students learn differently. And the arts is that vehicle to engage them in so many different ways. And so the students just embrace the material, understand it, and they're having fun while they're learning. They want to come to school. And the teachers having a good time too, because they know they're reaching their students and they're seeing the test results go up, they're seeing attendance go up, and those discipline problems in those hard to reach students are almost non-existent now because everyone's having such a good time learning.
That's fantastic. You really learn Newton's theory of relativity differently, I suppose, if you're actually putting together a dance to show them the laws of motion, yes?
Yeah, there's so many ways to use the arts. I was in a classroom a couple weeks ago, and they were learning about currency through portraiture, thinking about the dollar bills and money from around the world. Why do they choose those figures to be there? And then asking the students to make their own money. What's important to them? Is it their dog? Is it their mom? And when you make it that personal, and it's not some abstract concept of money, and they can touch it, they can feel it, and they can experience it, that's when the students really learn best.
That's incredible. And this really, it's not restricted to one part of the STEM curriculum, is it? There are techniques for incorporating arts all the way across.
Yeah, it's every arts form. So music, dance, acting, and visual arts in not only STEM, so science, technology, engineering, math, but also in your English subjects, your humanities. And when you bring that arts component, these students really thrive.
Sure. Now, you've said and explained that you don't expect every school to end up incorporating the A+ program, but you would like systems throughout Louisiana to understand the value of incorporating arts teaching into curriculum. Can you talk a little about that?
Of course. You know, Louisiana is known as this mecca for arts, and you know, this program highlights that every few weeks. And so to have a system of education that reflected the values of the state and our culture, I think would be a huge impact that so much of the rest of the country could see. And we can be a true model for education reform in the country if we can embrace those art forms.
Absolutely. And what do you see from kids? Because now this has been going on for quite a long time, and particularly in other states like North Carolina, there are students out there, of course, that have been through the program, and then you can reflect back on the value that it's brought to their educational lives. What do you hear from them?
Well, I get to travel to the other states frequently, and what's really fascinating is after 20 years of it being in North Carolina, you have students that went to these schools that are now graduating from college with education degrees, and they graduate saying, I want to teach at an A+ school. And so it's generational change that we can look for. And that's what's so beautiful about this program, is that it's a way to you know, train these schools how to operate, and then we're training ourselves out of the job. Well, us as a program can step away, but these schools will continue to thrive without much maintenance long term. Right. So it's a powerful program, and it's so cost effective, and that's why we think it's a great fit for Louisiana.
So generationally, those students are going to come back as teachers, is the ideal scenario, and bring what they have learned into their teaching for the kids who come after them.
Exactly, yeah, and you know, to get involved with universities and to make sure it's a part of that curriculum, so that you have these teachers that understand the value of the arts coming out of the college system would be a real fantastic goal to have as well.
Sure. Now that's a whole different paradigm. You visit a lot of schools where A+ is in process. What's the best part about visiting Louisiana A+ school these days?
Well, for me personally, it's so rewarding to walk into these places and to see, you know, so much Blue Dog artwork there. So they tie it all into Dad, and that's what Dad would have loved. He loved Louisiana so much. He always said if he wasn't from here, he probably never would have started painting in the first place. So for these schools to understand that they are getting arts in their classrooms because of Dad, that's the most important part, and that they're thriving. You know, I think these students, when they grow up, they'll look back and realize how lucky they were to have that arts program, because, you know, kids, they don't know that most kids don't get art, and so the ones that do, I don't think can even appreciate it yet.
That's a tremendous legacy, and you're changing the whole value and landscape of their education. Jacques, Rodrigue, thank you very much.
Thank you.
No matter where you live in Louisiana, opportunities to connect with the arts are everywhere, if only you know where to look. So here's a list of some goings-on coming up around the state. To learn more about these and other events in Louisiana, visit lpb.org/artrocks or pick up a free copy of Country Roads magazine. LPB's Art Rocks website also features an archive of previous episodes, so to see any segment again, just log on to lpb.org. Headed east to Florida now, where Orlando sculptor Mindy Colton has preserved a love of horses since she was a very young child. But it was in adulthood that Mindy started creating art that pays homage to those childhood experiences. Let's take a look.
I'm a mixed media artist. I'm primarily a sculptor. I work in bronze and aluminum, and I work in celluclay and wood, and I'm known for my equine art. I do love horses, and I've ridden my whole life. But back in my history, my grandfather was a horseman, and he was Austrian, and he ran a sales and training stable in New York City into the 40s. So everybody says in the family that I take after him. I started sculpting horses as kind of just a release for myself. I was working on computers for many, many years as an artist, and I wanted to get my hands back into real fine art materials, and I always loved three-dimensional design. I studied three-dimensional design. Some of these media are very difficult. Bronze is a very complex piece. There's about 12 steps involved in a bronze, starting with sculpting in a clay to make a clay model, and the model has to be molded, and the mold has to have wax put into it, and then another piece and melt it out, and you have to make another investment piece that's hollow and pour the bronze in there. And it involves about 12 different steps. It takes many months to do, And I love doing bronzes, but you're turning it over to somebody else too. You have to hand your work over to experts at a foundry. The reason I started doing these mixed media horses is I can do them all myself, and I can have my hands on the piece from start to finish. A lot of these materials were basically accidents, some of them just trying different materials. It's just a matter, you know, of trying them. You can't be in a rush, and if it doesn't work out, you can't be too upset, you just move on. My favorite pieces, I have a number of favorite pieces, and I do like Run Wild, Run Free a lot. I like the movement in them. I happen to like Appaloosa horses a lot, and they're kind of a tribute to a horse I had once that was an Appaloosa. That one's a tribute to the Florida Cracker Horse, which is the official horse of Florida. With the vintage postcards on there was a lot of fun. It took me months to collect the postcards. Some of them date back to 1903. I never thought that I would be here now. I never thought I'd have sculptures in a museum. I thought my life was going in a whole different direction. And I'm very happy that I found sculpture. I'm happy that I found all of these different mediums and that my work has been so well accepted. And I see these sculptures as part of me. When I do part with one, I want to know where it's going. I want to know where it's going to be. And they're that important to me that they're just not commodity that I'm selling. They're part of my soul, and they're part of horses, which are important to me and my life. So I guess that's why I do this. It's part of me, and any artist will tell you that they're giving up a little piece of themselves in every piece of their artwork.
North to New York now, where we travel to Troy to visit Nathan Meltz. Nathan's about to show us how he combines collage, screen painting and animation to create stories about the mechanization of modern life.
The beginning of my art story actually does start when I was about 8 years old, and my parents were discussing around the dining room table whether or not to let us watch this made-for-TV movie called The Day After, all about atomic bombs landing on Lawrence, Kansas. And so I watched this and it scared the crap out of me. And ever since then I've had a fascination with technology and destructive technologies, all those different ways that technology intersects with every part of our existence, from family and food to politics and war. It all starts off with a concept. So it may be scribbles in a notepad or a sketchbook, and that I have to figure out what that concept is, whether this is a story about labor or war or animals. I'm faced with this problem of how am I just going to visualize technology if these are technological stories I'm coming upon. And so I need to find a symbol for technology, and I've chosen the symbol to be analog machines. I start with these archival materials, I'll end up cutting out elements, and then I have to figure out what are these elements going to be used for. So they can go as part of collage. I'll start layering up these little images. Maybe they'll work, maybe they won't. And then it has to make a big jump and a big transition to the digital world. It gets scanned, and then there's kind of a multi-tier track in which it can go in. It can go into a computer as a still image, and eventually can transform into a screen print. So screen printing is basically a process where you have mesh stretched over metal stretcher bars, and you create a stencil on it, push ink through this stencil, and you have an image. It's a kind of a lo-fi analog technology, even though digital can feed into it. And it's nice to then scan those back in and actually take the handmade back into the digital, and that sometimes becomes part of the world that then these animated figures explore, walk through. Well, the robots are just one way to make character. And of course, then they have all of this symbolic quality to them, that they're symbols of technology. So they're symbols, but then that can have emotions and behaviors and can force or hopefully entice the viewer to have some sort of empathy for them. Art has such become part of my life that there's no longer a space where it isn't there. It's a compulsion to do it and an unhappiness if I'm not doing it. Why have I chosen such tedious media? I don't know, and I think there's something about certain media attracts certain artists, and maybe I hate myself in a certain way, and that's why I've chosen these tedious media.
Back home now to visit a place that houses some of Louisiana's most precious historical artifacts and records, Hill Memorial Library. Here's a rare glimpse at the Hill's collection of invaluable bird masterpieces.
Published by subscription from 1827 to 1838, the Birds of America remains an ornithological touchstone to this day. Consisting of hand-colored prints made from engraved plates, Audubon's monumental work is world-renowned for its scientific accuracy and remarkable artistry. 167 of the 435 pictures in Birds of America were drawn on Louisiana soil. Several of them are now extinct, but not forgotten thanks to Audubon's legacy. Greatly inspired by Audubon's work, I had to meet his muse, so I tracked down Dr. Van Remsen, curator of birds at LSU's Museum of Natural Science. Dr. Remsen, tell me about this amazing collection.
This is the George Lowrie Gallery of Louisiana birds. There's one of every species that occurs in Louisiana here. But where we're going to go next is the research collection. That's where the real treasures are.
The 9th largest bird collection in the world, it now ranks 3rd among university-based collections, second only to Harvard and Michigan. That is a huge wing.
Isn't that amazing?
It is.
Look at this. The
and
wingspan
I think it's
of
just
one
about
of
as
these
tall
birds.
as me.
I don't know who's this bigger. It's going to be a close call.
As if coming face to face with a giant monkey-eating eagle wasn't enough, I was even more shocked when Dr. Remsen revealed that
the LSU Museum of Natural Science has the world's largest collection of bird DNA, 60,000+ samples.
But perhaps most astonishing is just how much bird data LSU has amassed.
I think we have more data on birds in this collection than any other collection in the world. This is the barbet family, and in this family is a species of bird that was discovered by one of our staff research associates, Dan Lane. He knew it was a new species of bird the minute he saw it.
I sat down with Dan, who revealed that his was a case of serious beginner's luck. Not only was it his first trip to Peru, but since he was recording bird sounds at the time, he happened to capture the whole thing on tape.
First you hear some sounds that the bird is making. They're barely audible.
Is this a barbet that we're hearing?
That really deep rumbling.
Dan's fortuitous expedition was led by Dr. John O'Neill. Credited with discovering several new bird species of his own, Dr. O'Neill is also the bearer of our next treasure.
This is the chief ceremonial headdress. It was given to us by Dr. John O'Neill. He did a lot of bird research in the Amazon basin in the 60s and worked with tribes in bird collection. He became quite friendly with many folks, and the chief actually gave him this headdress. They're quite generous.
And that's going to do it for this edition of Art Rocks. But remember, you can always watch episodes of the show at lpb.org/artrocks. Meanwhile, Country Roads magazine is a great place to find out about what's going on in the arts all across the state. So until next week, I'm James Fox Smith, and thanks for watching.